In this video, I'd like to talk about putting parts together in solid edge assemblies, including pre-positioning parts, using flash fit, and comparing solid edge assembly relationships with SolidWorks mates. The first thing to know is that what Solid Edge calls relationships, SolidWorks calls mates. Solid Edge does have a relationship called the mate, which can get a little confusing. And the relationships in Solid Edge don't have a one-to-one relationship with SolidWorks mates. So if you're moving between the two programs, you need to adjust your understanding of how things work just a little bit. To put parts into a Solid Edge assembly, use the parts library. The parts library is essentially like a built-in Windows Explorer right inside the Solid Edge window. You can find it through any of the pane drop-down lists. When you place parts into Solid Edge using the parts library, you can use the preview window to pre-position a part so that it comes into the assembly window in a predictable orientation. First, position the part in the preview, and then drag it from the Parts Library list window into the assembly window. Now let's mate together these two parts with holes. Click on the inside face of the part that you want to move first, and then the reference part. It doesn't always work out the way you specify, but when there's an open degree of freedom, it will. For example, if one of the parts is grounded or mated to other parts, it may not move as you expect it to. But when the open degrees of freedom allow it, the first part you select moves, and the second stays stationary. Now we can pre-position this part some more just by dragging it before we drop and accept the mate. It has two open degrees of freedom, one rotational and one translational. Just by dragging the part, we can exercise these degrees of freedom as long as we're still in flash fit. Now let's set the part back where it came from. I'm going to use Control-Z twice to undo, and let's say now that I want to get some additional copies of these parts, and for convenience sake, I'd like some of these parts to be in certain orientations. I can use Shift-Drag to get a copy of that part that maintains its default orientation, and by using Alt-Drag, the part will come in with the orientation of the occurrence that was dragged. So I dragged in the second support part, and it comes in parallel to that occurrence. Now let's shift to talking about assembly relationships. Flash Fit works very much like SmartMates in SolidWorks. The mate relationship in Solid Edge is like the coincident mate in SolidWorks, where the faces face in the opposite directions. Planar align is like coincident in SolidWorks, but the faces face the same direction. Axial align is like concentric in SolidWorks, or coincident when the axes are being mated together. Insert is a compound mate where a pair of cylindrical and a pair of flat faces are mated together very much like a bolt into a hole. Connect is a complex mate that's somewhere between coincident and tangent. Some of these other mates should be familiar, like angle, tangent, path, parallel, gear mates, and the center plane. Match coordinate systems doesn't have a direct correspondence to anything in SolidWorks, but you can see where this would be very powerful. Also, ground in Solid Edge is like the fixed condition in SolidWorks, although strangely, fixed is not considered a mate. Rigid set in Solid Edge allows you to combine parts into an ad hoc assembly and move them around as a group, as if they had some sort of geometrical relationship to one another. Capture Fit is applied to parts in the part window. This is like mate references in SolidWorks, and it helps you place parts and assemblies that will be placed many times. The Assembly Relationships Manager puts all of the relationships in one place where they're easy to see, and it helps you with troubleshooting. The Assembly Relationship Assistant assists you with applying mates to parts in an assembly that have been imported. So the parts are in place, but they do not have assembly relationships yet. Assembly Relationship Assistant will help you recognize and then apply these relationships. Thanks for watching.